Hi everyone, Lisa here from Down to Earth Gardening. Welcome to today's video. Today's video we are going to be using my Southern Magnolia leaves. If you watched my Southern Magnolia tree video while I was down in Florida, I promised that we were going to do a craft with you and I would share it. So today's the day. So I love my crafting and it's a warmer winter day, so it's fantastic to be able to be outside and set up out here and go ahead and make a mess. So before we get to the craft, I just want to talk briefly about preserving, drying the Southern Magnolia leaves and my process. And then I'm going to share with you some other materials that we're going to incorporate in our craft today. So I was down in zone 10A, down in Florida, near Clearwater and the West Coast, lots of beautiful Southern Magnolia trees. So of course I did some foraging and brought some back to Connecticut with me. But where I live here in Connecticut, the Southern Magnolias do not grow. So you can get some leaves, you mail order some dried leaves, or if you have a chance to come across a Southern Magnolia, then harvest your own. So what I did was I experimented a little bit and I want to share that with you quickly. So these are my leaves here that I have experimented with some Mod Podge. And so I clear coated these front and back, and I will put up my products in the description below and share the links. But I put this on first, let it dry. I used these great little brushes. I did the front and back. Let it dry a day. Now it goes on milky, it dries clear. And then the next day I went ahead and I sprayed this sealer on. So what you're seeing here in the basket are the leaves that I sealed. But just to experiment with them a little bit, these are dried naturally, and you can see the beautiful rust undersides. And the front sides here have faded a little bit, but still beautiful. So we're going to be using both in the craft today. And then I picked up some fallen leaves because if you'll remember from the video, the trees do shed a little bit. So these are the brown leaves, also pretty, but then we sprayed them with some gold spray paint. So we're going to be using all of these in the craft today. So the craft is going to be a really fun swag or garland that I'm going to be hanging inside for the winter because you all know I love my flowers and dried leaves and whatnot, and I like to bring things in for the winter to enjoy and just kind of spruce up the inside a little bit, bring the outdoors in. So you may have seen my dried flower videos in which I will dry whatever I can get my hands on. So I'm going to incorporate some dried things here that I'm also going to share with you before we get started. But for your magnolia leaves, we are going to be doing a swag. You can also lay the swag down as a centerpiece. But the other things you can do with your magnolia leaves, you can do some beautiful dried arrangements, and I've also seen them used in lots of wedding centerpieces and garlands. So there's many uses for them. I'm just trying to give you my use for them and just share what I'm doing with them today. So your choice, I think they're pretty either way, and we may be using both today. So I'm just going to put these aside. I'm going to show you the other materials that we have. All right, so for my garland, I have this twine here, raffia wrap twine. And of course, I've got some wire here. I've got some pretty ribbon. But for a really good base here with the leaves, I'm going to be using this eucalyptus. Now, what I will say is with eucalyptus, there's about 700 species of eucalyptus. Many of them grow natively in Australia. I live in New England, so they do not grow well in my zone. So I go out and purchase some different varieties at the florist or the floral supply company that we use, and I just hang them, my simple drying method, which I've also done a video on. I hang them upside down to dry. So I'm going to be using this here for some nice added texture in my garland. And for my extra embellishments, I have some pine cones, and these are just options. And then I also have some clementine slices that I've been drying. So these here, I've just sliced up and put in my dehydrator at 135 Fahrenheit for 5 to 6 hours. So you want them completely dry so you won't get any mold or mildew on them. So I may use those in the mix as well. But you can vary your embellishments with your ribbons. If you want to go ahead and use your pine cones, paint them. Any other dried flowers that you have would look really pretty in the mix, or any kind of ornaments. All right, so let's get started. So when you're starting this project, always think about where and how you're going to be using this. So I have a blank wall in mind that I want to spruce up a little bit. So I'm going to be making the garland and then kind of hanging it as a swag. So think about the size of the finished product that you want. And then I'm also going to be leaving myself a nice little hook to hang this from. So here's my length here. And I don't have a measuring tape out here, but I'm going to say this is about 2.5 feet. And I always go a little bit longer because you can always cut it down if you want to. Okay. And then I'm just going to secure this by twisting this here. Beautiful winter day to work outside today. Okay. So now I have some sticks here, and what I'm going to be using them for is I'm going to be securing some of the smaller leaves on them to give them a little length to work with. You could also use some floral picks with wire on them. You can get your glue gun out, but I am just going to try to secure some of these leaves right onto some twigs that I just literally picked out in the back here. Okay, so we have our materials ready and lined up here, and what I just did is I wired some of the leaves on the twigs just so they're ready. I like to have all my materials ready. So we have some of the gold ones wired up and some of the leaves with the Mod Podge wired up here. And like I said, if you don't have enough wire to do this, or if you prefer, you can always just break out the glue gun and glue them on these twigs here. And that's just going to give me a little extra length to work with when I am wiring the swag. So I've got my roll of wire, which we're going to keep on the roll. We don't want to cut it until the end. And I've got my my raffia wrapped wire here. That's going to be the support for the garland, and just my pruners and scissors. So we're going to start at the bottom, and we want to have our leaves going in this direction for the garland. So I'm going to be hanging it this way. So if you're going to be laying it down, that also works. So I'm going to make some little bunches. Little bunches or little bouquets to work with here. And just going to do some different things in the mix. Okay, so first bunch, and then I'm just going to wrap the whole bunch. Now I always tell people when we're doing a garland or roping, that the first bunch that you wire on and the last bunch that you wire on are the toughest. And that's just because you want to make sure that you're really securing it. So just do a few wraps with the wire and as tight as you can there. Okay, and then next bunch. I also have some of these leaves here, the magnolia leaves that have more of a stem. So I'm going to put some of these in the mix. We're just going to keep working with our little bunches or bouquets and wiring them on. Okay, this is what we have so far. And so I like to give it a little bit of a trailing end here. So I made the early pieces that we tied on a little bit thinner, and then as I worked up, I made my bunches a little bit thicker. So I like it a little wider here. So I'm getting ready to put on the last little bunch, and I wanted to show you a little trick that I do to finish it off. So of course we're going to be putting a bow, it's a pretty ribbon on it, and then we can go back with our glue gun and our wire and embellish it a little more if we'd like. But final bunch, what I do is I go ahead and make a little bunch here. So I want to get a little bit of both of my materials in the mix. And I like to flip it around the other way just to finish it off and kind of cover the hanger a little bit. So you will see a little bit of wire and stem, but that's okay because that's where we're going to put our bow. So just make sure that we really like this because it's going to be at the top and it's going to kind of finish things off. Let's see here. We have a pretty gold one. Okay. So here, wire this on. And then our wire cutters. And then just try to secure it a little bit in the back, kind of tie it off a little bit. And then this is it. So I love the contrast of the dried oranges in here, but we're not done yet. Okay, we're ready to finish off our project with a pretty bow. So just a couple of options for ribbon. I have some velvet ribbon, which I really love, and I think I'm going to do the burgundy. Also, pretty holiday color. You could also use this for the holidays, but this is going to carry me through the winter, and I guess I could always switch it up if I wanted to for a different season. Okay, here it is. And that's it for today. I'm pretty happy with it. I may add some more orange slices or pine cones with the glue gun, but for the most part, I think it's pretty much done, and I really enjoyed doing this video for you all today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all of you at home watching, and if you like this video, please go ahead and tap like and hit subscribe to our channel because we have so many more gardening videos coming your way.